Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome into NBA Now. I am your host, Harris Rubenstein. The day we have all been waiting for is finally here. Anthony Davis has officially requested a trade from the New Orleans Pelicans. We're going to have 5 trades for him, what the Lakers need to do to get AD, and then we're going to end the show on a couple teams that are going to be sellers at this year's deadline. And obviously, we're going to be talking about the New Orleans Pelicans. But first, let's start with what everyone wants to talk about, and that is the Anthony Davis trade request. So, like I said to start the show, he has officially requested a trade from the Pelicans. The timing is a little bit weird, but Anthony Davis has said that he will turn down the $240 million max deal that the Pelicans were planning to offer him this summer. So now the race begins for one of the NBA's best players and also youngest as well in terms of elite NBA All-Stars. Guy is going into his age 27 season next year, so he is going to be one of the most sought-after players in NBA trade history. And with that, we're going to have plenty of trade options and the trade machine's getting dusted off. We have a lot of things to go over with Anthony Davis today. Get your questions in. We'll be answering them all show long as to where Anthony Davis could end up. So let's talk about the exteriors when it comes to the Anthony Davis trade. So obviously, the Pelicans have until the February 7th deadline to trade him this season. But the Pelicans don't actually have to trade him by the deadline. They can wait until the summer to deal him. There's no weird player option or anything crazy that will allow them to trade Anthony Davis after the deadline unless they buy him out, which they're not going to do. The big kicker here is that Anthony Davis is going to become a free agent in 2020, which means that the Pelicans almost have to trade him over the summer, maybe in July once the Celtics are able to, or even before once we hear about the NBA draft picks. But the Pelicans, as of right now, do not have to make a trade. They do not. I understand everyone's going to want to rush to judgment and say the Lakers are going to have to trade for him, by Friday. That doesn't need to happen. Now that the trade request has been submitted, the Pelicans can take their time and find the best deal for their team. I'm sure they're very disappointed by this. I'm sure this is going to come as a shock to the entire franchise. Hell, I can't believe I'm saying this. This might be the trade that sends the New Orleans Pelicans to Seattle. I'm serious. This could be a franchise-altering trade for New Orleans, and obviously giving up a player of Anthony Davis caliber is never something that a small market team wants to do. But if you're the NBA, this is great news for you. You can now take one of the best players in your sport, who is really the least watched all-time great player that we have had in, good Lord, a very long time. There's not been a superstar player like Anthony Davis in a small market like this. Obviously, LeBron is the exception, but wherever he is becomes the LeBron market. But Anthony Davis is one of the biggest players in the NBA who's just been in a small market now for 8 years. And it's different than a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who ended up with 3 superstars in James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant. It's different for the Pelicans versus a lot of the other small market teams in the NBA, simply because they have not been able to acquire those other superstar players to surround Anthony Davis with. Their record has faltered this year. They're 22-28. So a lot of different options for what the Pelicans could do with Anthony Davis. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 teams that could realistically trade for Anthony Davis. And I say realistically because there are a lot of teams who just A, can't afford him, or B, don't have the assets. Personally, I only think there's 3 realistic options for Anthony Davis, and one of them are the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks are probably, in my opinion, the most interesting team that could trade for Anthony Davis. I know the Lakers and the Celtics will also be on this list, but to me, the Knicks are the most interesting because right now they're awful. They're 10-38. They're one of the worst teams in all of basketball. They're making a run after the number 1 overall pick to maybe get Zion Williamson, but they also pose a huge threat for any free agent this offseason. And getting Anthony Davis instantly makes them the number 1 destination for any free agent in basketball, whether that's Kevin Durant, Kemba Walker, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, doesn't matter. If they have Anthony Davis, people are going to want to go to New York to play with Anthony Davis. So this would really open up a ton of things for the Knicks. Now, what they would have to give up to get Anthony Davis is a lot. Because remember, not only do they have to get Anthony Davis, they also need Anthony Davis to sign an extension so they're not just giving up a ton of stuff for nothing. So if the Knicks do make this trade, I want to make this very clear. If the Knicks do make this trade, that means they have a 80% certainty rate that they are getting one of Kemba Walker, Kyrie Irving, or Kevin Durant. If they do not have a certainty that they are getting one of those guys, they will not make that trade. I will say that one more time. If they do not have a certainty that they are getting a big-time free agent this summer, they will not make this trade. Straight up, point blank, not going to happen. But if they think they're going to get Kevin Durant this summer, this is the trade that will get them Anthony Davis. Kristaps Porzingis, Kevin Knox, Enes Kanter is a nice expiring and makes the money work, and then the Knicks 2019 first-round pick. Now, I know that looks heavy, and I know that looks like a lot that the Knicks are going to have to give up to give for Anthony Davis. But hey, remember, Kristaps is coming off of that torn ACL, and Biggs coming off of knee injuries is always a little bit concerning. Kevin Knox is a nice player, but he'd have to get shipped out if the Knicks wanted to get Anthony Davis anyway. Kanter just to make the money work, and that 2019 first-round pick is what could end up separating the Knicks deal from everyone else's. Why? Because that Knicks pick could end up as one of the first 5 picks in the draft and could end up being a Zion pick. If I'm the Pelicans, I wait this out. I can wait until the offseason and know who's going to have the number 1 overall pick, who has the best chance to get Zion Williamson, and how free agency is looking to kind of emulate over the next couple of months. But if you're the Knicks, this could be a team where he could go to. And also want to point this out, the Knicks were on Anthony Davis's initial 5 teams list that he wanted to be traded to at the start of the season. He never requested a trade, but there were multiple rumors that he had 5 teams that he actually wanted to get traded to, and the Knicks were one of those teams. We got a question here from Sug Patton saying, why would he go to an even worse team? He wants a championship. Well, like I said, the Knicks are not going to make this deal unless they have a certainty or they damn well are sure that they are getting a Kevin Durant or a Kyrie Irving or a Kemba Walker. You don't give up KP and Kevin Knox in a first-round pick if you don't think you're going to be able to attract elite NBA talent. But if they're able to get Anthony Davis and they're able to get Kevin Durant and you're the New York Knicks, you do that in a second because that's instantly a playoff spot. And also on top of that, that would allow you to be a finals contender, which is what the Knicks need. At this point, the Knicks don't need to win an NBA Finals. They need to make it to the damn playoffs, and Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant would certainly help them do that. Again, it's a little bit heavy, but I think if they know they're going to get a free agent, Anthony Davis is their guy. We got another question here saying, why would you give up Knox and KP for AD? Way too rich. It's not that rich at all. Kevin Knox has played 40 games in the NBA, and KP at this point is coming off a pretty debilitating knee injury for a 7-footer at his age. Also, not to mention this, remember, if you're the Knicks, you're going to have to give a massive contract to Kristaps Porzingis anyway with that injury. Why not just give that money to Anthony Davis when you know he's A, already a better player, and B, not having to deal with rehabbing from a torn ACL? I don't hate the Knicks getting an Anthony Davis for Kristaps Porzingis, but again, they should only do it if they know they are getting Kevin Durant or one of the other big free agents. If they do not know they are getting one of those guys, do not make that deal. But if Kevin Durant's coming, you should do anything that you possibly can to get Anthony Davis. Let's go to the Philadelphia 76ers, another team that could trade for Anthony Davis. This one, I would say, is probably, again, one of the least likely ones. I don't think the 76ers are actually going to get him, but they're one of only a couple teams in the NBA that actually have the assets to make a move for Anthony Davis, which is why I think they're going to be in the mix for him. So the trade has to revolve around Ben Simmons because we know the 76ers aren't going to give up Joel Embiid at this point. He is their guy. So Ben Simmons would be the one that would have to be on his way out for the Sixers if the Pelicans were to make a trade with Philadelphia. Now, the only reason that you would trade Ben Simmons is if you don't think the Simmons and Embiid combo is going to work long term. However, what this would allow the 76ers to do, you have Embiid, you have Anthony Davis, and you have Jimmy Butler to create one of the best big threes in basketball right now. Maybe Jimmy Butler, instead of signing a long-term 4-year, 5-year contract with the 76ers, maybe he takes a 1-year max offer like Kevin Durant did with the Warriors that allows the 76ers to bring in AD on a bigger extension. However, there was a point brought up to me on Twitter by one of my followers asking why would the 76ers make a trade to get them Embiid and Anthony Davis? We saw that the Boogie Cousins and Anthony Davis combo in New Orleans didn't work all that well. Well, I ask you guys this. Take that Boogie Cousins Anthony Davis team and put them in the East. That team wins 55 games and is a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. You put Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid on the same team in the East, that team's going to win a hell of a lot of games and is going to be a threat for the Eastern Conference Finals every single year. So here's the trade for what the Pelicans would have to receive from the 76ers. So Ben Simmons, obviously throwing that in there. Zaire Smith, who I throw it in there because he has not played a single game in the NBA. We have no idea how good he's going to be. Wilson Chandler to make the money work. That unprotected 2021 pick for the Miami Heat, and will end up being a pretty late first-round pick for the Philadelphia 76ers in 2019. Now, if that 2019 pick ends up being number 1 overall with the Sacramento Kings, because if the Kings pick ends up number 1 overall, the 76ers get it, then they don't have to trade the 2021 pick, and they most likely don't have to trade Zaire Smith either. So that first-round pick is kind of in the air as well, because if it ends up in number 1 overall, A, the 76ers probably aren't going to trade it, and B, you could cut that trade in half. So let me know in the comment section below who says no. Type 76 for the 76ers or type P for the Pelicans. I would say the Pelicans probably say no because the draft picks aren't good enough, but if I can get Ben Simmons for Anthony Davis, that just gives me another great young player to build around and hopefully try again to build an elite roster around them. If you guys want to make money on the NBA this year, head to chatsports.com/bet. BetDSI sponsoring our show today. Go use the promo code NBA120 for a 120% deposit bonus. We'll have everything for you guys this year. Player bets, MVP bets, get some money in for the Super Bowl as well. Chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code NBA120. All right, let's go to another team that could trade for Anthony Davis. This is the Boston Celtics, probably with the team that has the most assets to trade. However, here's the kicker. As I'm sure you guys have heard on social media or on this show for the 16,000th time, no, the Boston Celtics cannot make a trade for Anthony Davis in season. Why? The Rose Rule. Because they acquired Kyrie Irving already on a max deal, they cannot trade for another contract until Kyrie Irving's runs out or they sign him to a new deal, which will likely be this summer. So until Kyrie Irving signs a new contract, there is no Anthony Davis in Boston, which again, I'm sure you've heard now for 16,000 times and won. So now we look ahead to 2019 summer, where the Celtics could actually make a move for Anthony Davis. They have the most draft picks of any team in the first round this year. Four potential first-round picks for the Celtics this year. They have the Grizzlies pick if it falls out of the top 6. They have the Kings pick if it isn't number 1 overall. They have the Clippers protected pick if it falls out of the lottery. And also they have their own pick. So 4 2019 first-round picks the Celtics can bring to the table, along with 3 next year with a couple protections and 2 unprotected first-round picks in 2020 with the Kings and also with the Clippers if things go that way. But if the Pelicans want to make a move with the Celtics around the NBA draft, this is what the trade could look like. And I want to also put an asterisk next to Terry Rozier. Rozier is an RFA at the end of this year, restricted free agents, for those who don't know what that means. What the Celtics would have to do in the Terry Rozier situation, likely, is have him agree to a signing trade with the Pelicans, along with Jaylen Brown and Robert Williams and those first-round picks, and the Celtics would still have to bring in a third team in order to make the money work, whether that's moving in Al Horford or moving in Aaron Baines, along with somehow mixing up Jaylen Brown instead of Jason Tatum into the mix. This is what the Celtics would have to do. There are a lot of moves that Celtics would have to make around this trade in order to make the money work. The big kicker with the Celtics is that Al Horford player option worth $30 million next year. So if the Celtics sign Kyrie Irving to a big extension next summer, they owe $30 million to Gordon Hayward, $30 million to Al Horford, and likely $30 million as well to Kyrie Irving, which would mean they cannot make a trade for Anthony Davis. They simply don't have the cap space. So the Celtics would have to move some money around in order to make this work. We already know they expect to lose Marcus Morris this offseason. So I think the Celtics could make this work. They absolutely have the most draft capital and the most assets to give to the Pelicans. But Trader Danny would have to just make one of his great all-time trades in order to make this work. If the Celtics do get Anthony Davis, they would have the best 1-2 combo in the Eastern Conference for years to come. 2 top 10 players in the NBA in Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. I think it'd be a fantastic combination. However, it would be a very difficult trade for Danny Ainge to pull off. He could do it, but it's going to take a lot of work. I wonder if the Pelicans just go with an easier solution. So another team, and Breathe, people, breathe. This isn't likely. This is extremely unlikely. Out of the 5 teams that we are listing today, the Golden State Warriors are the least likely team to acquire Anthony Davis. But you better bet your ass that the Warriors are going to be hunting for Anthony Davis either at the deadline or this summer. They have already said for 2 straight years now that Anthony Davis is their next target and they want him to play in Golden State. Joe Lacob has said it. There have been multiple rumors out of the front office. We know that the players are also very in favor of Anthony Davis coming to the Warriors. So if the Warriors wanted to make a trade for Anthony Davis, it's a little bit more difficult in season because the money doesn't really work right now, and the assets that they can send back to the Pelicans aren't that great. They don't really have a lot of great first-round picks. They don't have a lot of great young assets that they could ship over to the Pelicans, but they could make enough of a package that would allow the Pelicans to stay competitive in the Western Conference. I want to say this again. The Warriors are extremely unlikely to get Anthony Davis, but there is a trade on the table that makes sense for the Pelicans in order to ship Anthony Davis to the Warriors. So here is the trade. Draymond Green, who, mind you, is probably the best player that I've put on the table so far for any team trading for Anthony Davis. Draymond Green, Sean Livingston to make the money work, Jordan Bell as well, a nice young player sent to the Pelicans as well, and a 2019 first-round pick, plus at least 1, if not 2 other future first-round picks from the Warriors. I'm just not really sure what their draft capital is in terms of future earnings because they just have a lot of weird draft stuff going on with trading picks in the past, with protections. So they could throw 2 first-round picks on the back of this and maybe try to make it work. But as of right now, I do not think that the Warriors are going to trade for Anthony Davis. I'm typing to P for Pelicans. Let me know in the comment section below who says no. I'm going to say P for the Pelicans. The Warriors aren't going to get Anthony Davis, but wouldn't it be fun? I think it'd actually be kind of fun. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis. You could build a whole franchise around Steph Curry and AD. That'd be super fun. I really like that. Last, but certainly not least, let's talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, who, if we're being honest with ourselves, we all know who's orchestrating this trade right now for Anthony Davis. It's LeBron James and Rich Paul. Absolutely. Clutch Sports is trying to get Anthony Davis to the Lakers. And the very obvious reason that this trade request came out now is because we are a week and a half away from the NBA trade deadline, and Anthony Davis probably wants to be on the Lakers by February 7th. Straight up. But here's the only problem. The Lakers probably don't have enough assets that are attracted to the Pelicans to make a trade. Really, their young pieces simply might not be good enough. And I think that's one of the biggest issues right now with getting Anthony Davis to the Lakers. What does a trade look like to actually get him there? Sam Farmer of the LA Times posted something very interesting this morning, saying that a trade from the Lakers for Anthony Davis would have to start with Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Ivica Zubac, and their 2019 first-round pick. That's where it would have to start, is giving up the 2 best young players on the Lakers' entire team. Because remember, the other issue with this trade for the Lakers, you're not just trading Anthony Davis to the Lakers. You're trading him inside your own conference. You're trading him into a team that you're probably going to have to play 4 or 5 times a year, who's going to travel to your home arena with the superstar player that you acquired. Now, I know that small market teams have traded their best players to big market teams all the time in the past. It's really been the history of the NBA, are small market teams getting big time players and shipping them off to big market teams. But I just wonder, do the Lakers have enough assets for the New Orleans Pelicans to actually trade Anthony Davis in the conference? And also, who wants to trade their best player to the Lakers? I wouldn't want to, just out of spite for Los Angeles. So here is the initial most likely trade for what it would take to get Anthony Davis on the Lakers. Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, Ivica Zubac, and 2 first-round picks in 2019 and 2021. As of right now, that's what it would take. Now, the other kicker on top of this is that in order for the Lakers to actually acquire Anthony Davis and then sign him to an extension, they would have to dump enough money to pick up that contract extension, which means they already have to trade Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram, who are worth a combined $15 million next year. Kyle Kuzma would technically be a deal sweetener in order for this trade to go through, and Ivica Zubac has simply been playing good enough basketball that he is now a tradable asset. I would say if I'm the Lakers, I don't make this trade. I don't make this trade. That's what it's going to take to get Anthony Davis. I'd cut that trade in half and trade it to the Wizards for Bradley Beal. Said this on our last show. I've said this every single time the Lakers have come up with Anthony Davis. You can cut that deal in half, trade, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and 2 first-round picks for Bradley Beal. I do that in a second, but I don't think the Lakers have any interest right now in picking up Bradley Beal. It sounds like their really only clear plan is to trade away half the roster for Anthony Davis. But let me know in the comment section below where you guys think Anthony Davis is going to be traded. I still think it's going to end up being Boston. I think Boston has always been the likely destination for him. But with the Lakers getting in the mix and with this trade request coming before the deadline, there's still a very good chance that Anthony Davis ends up in Los Angeles.